Welcome, guys. It's your girl, Attorney Simone, your legal bestie. And today we have a breakdown of Tony Busby Law Firm, the Busby Law Firm's new cases. So earlier today, attorney Tony Busby, who's based here in Houston, Texas, had a press conference in which he revealed that there are over 120 new victims that he's going to be representing to file suit against Diddy and any of his co-conspirators. So get on in here. I want to make sure you guys get a chance to come on in here, as well as, I want to give you guys a chance to ask questions, because there's also going to be a lot of myths regarding this case that I have to debunk. Now, if you've heard of a myth, if you're watching in the live chat, first of all, hit that like as you enter. And if you've heard of a myth, I want you to put myth and then put whatever you've heard so that I could see it and then flag it and get back to it. Now, the number one myth I want to be clear about is this is not a class action. Okay. This is not a class action case. Let me tell you why that's a great thing. Instead, this may be what's called multi-district litigation. A class action case means everybody was hurt in the exact same way and is seeking to get paid the exact same dollar amount. That is never appropriate where you have individualized injuries with individual victims. So, for example, I used to do a lot of like when you see the commercials for if you took this drug or if you took this drug and you got sick, those aren't class actions. Those are actually where you individualize and you say, these are my injuries. So here, the victims and their stories will all be individualized. There is going to be separate lawsuits filed for each one. This means this could clog up the legal system for years. And the other myth I want to address at this forefront is people are saying, what about all the NDAs? Because the majority of these victims attended Diddy parties and things. The answer is that NDAs are irrelevant. NDAs, any type of contracts, never, ever cover up crimes. So if what you're doing is either suing in civil court or criminal court for crimes, it's totally fine. And I think what's confusing is part of an NDA, and the one I actually have the one that Diddy frequently makes people sign. I'll see if I can search on my system and see if I can pull it up. But the ones that he signed, they always have a line that says, you're going to keep all this stuff quiet and you won't sue. This is what you need to know about that. Contracts can say illegal stuff all the time, or not illegal as in you'll go to jail, but invalid, unlawful stuff that won't hold up in court. They'll say it. They'll put it in there to scare you. But even though these are all civil cases, all of those NDAs, all of those documents they signed when they enter Diddy parties, because see, Diddy would have a digital document. He'd take your cell phone. Then there'd be someone at the door that had this digital document where you got to sign it, like through an iPad or whatever, saying you're going to keep everything you see in here confidential. But again, if you just, and it also says you're not going to sue Diddy for anything that happens. And that doesn't hold up in court at all. So here's kind of the summary. And then I took copious notes, and I'm going to go through those notes with you as well. Also, as we're getting started, here we go. Don't forget, you can book a consultation with me. Here we go. On my website, which is simoneredwine.com. You can get a copy of my book, which is Background Checks 101, the beginner's guide to determining who the heck you're really dealing with. And then you can just go up to this top right-hand corner, click book or hire Attorney Simone, and you can schedule a consultation with me. They start right now at just $149 for 30 minutes. Okay. Now we're going to just pull this one down. There we are. All right. So let me just start, y'all, give you the summary. So Tony Busby's law firm stated that they received, once they made the announcement, that they would be representing anyone who is victimized by Diddy for no upfront costs. That means contingency fee basis only, meaning they only get paid if they recover money for you. So you do not have to come out of pocket a dime if you're one of these victims. He received over 3,000 phone calls. 3,000 phone calls. Of those 3,000, his staff has been vetting them. They have vetted down from the 3,000 to 120. With that 120, with that 120, 50% are men and 50% are women. They said that 62% identify as African American, 30% as white, and the rest is Asian or Hispanic. I want to give Tony his props for breaking that down and letting us know that, because I think that is significant. Like, we in the community, in the African American community, I was curious about that. It doesn't mean anything with respects to the validity of the claims, but I was happy to know more about the demographic. And then there's the ages. The youngest victim was 9 years old. There's also a 14-year-old victim, a 15-year-old victim, and approximately 25 of the 120 victims are minors. Someone is asking in the chat, well, will these victims be getting just $5 a piece? Again, this is not a class action, so no. Remember, anytime you hear anybody say, oh, but it's just a class action, no, that's incorrect. This is individualized litigation. Sometimes it could be what's called multi-district. So multi-district is usually if it's thousands of victims, but what'll happen sometimes is if you have multiple victims, because here, the majority of the victims were in California and New York, some in Florida. There could be a court set up because they usually like to have the same judge hear all similarly situated cases. So they'll likely have one particular judge in California to hear them, another one in Florida, and another one in New York to hear all of these civil cases. That way, that judge is going to be the most familiar, but everybody gets an individualized settlement dollar amount and they get separate juries. Oh, baby. At this point, Diddy needs to just sell as much of his assets as possible. Watch this. This is what he'll probably do. Sell as much of the assets as possible and then go buy an even bigger Florida home. So he's got that $48 million home. He's got a California home. What he can do is sell that $70 million California home that's for sale now. Put that together with the $48 million he's already got. So what is that? 50. Buy him a $120 million home in Florida, because Florida has homestead protection and there is no cap on the dollar amount. So effectively, if he buys a $120 million Florida home, victims can never touch it. He can pass that sucker down to his kids, potentially, but they could never sell it. I'm sorry, they can never touch it or force him to sell it to pay them. Let's go back to the demographics. Again, we said the 120 victims that Mr. Busby at this point is representing out of 3,000 that called him. He's got half women, half men, 62% Black, 30% white, about 8% Latino or Asian. 25 of those victims are minors. The youngest one is 9 years old. The timeline of these incidences were from 1991 to 2024, although most of them happened after 2015. Most of the incidents happened, like I said, New York and California. Some of them were at the all-white party. Now, these victims are all cooperating with the feds. Mr. Busby said he doesn't know which cases that the feds might be interested in, but he has said that some of his victims have already spoken with the feds. 55% of his victims, of the 120 that he has taken on, filed police reports or hospital reports right after it happened. Police reports, or that's huge, because that could implicate a police cover-up. If you've got a bunch of these different reports, I don't care if it's over the years or what have you, and they just magically go away or don't get investigated by LAPD or NYPD, that could be a cover-up. That may need to be investigated as well. Let's see. In addition, the overriding theme, he stated, for the majority of the claims is that someone was at a party or a social event or something with Diddy. They were given a drink, they pass out, and then they wake up and they see evidence of assault, not knowing what happened or whatever. Then for the ones that went to the hospital, they go to the hospital, they get tested. Multiple victims have horse tranquilizer in their blood. Where the hell do you get that? Nobody just goes to Petco and gets horse tranquilizer and takes it. But that drug, he called it xylazine, which is a form of horse tranquilizer, can be placed into drinks and different things like that. It's pretty undetectable in the drinks. So people would drink them. People would drink them. And then those people would wake up. One woman woke up in bed with Diddy. And I'll get to more of those specific facts. I'm going to play a clip for you guys. After I give you these, I'm going to play a clip where Attorney Busby, through his own words, is stating some of these examples. But I want to make sure that you guys hear get the overall review too, because the way my ADD is set up, y'all, I like to know the umbrella, and then I like to get into the specifics. Let me see. Hit that like button, guys. We've got 300 and some. No, we've got almost 500 in here, and we don't have no likes. All right. The poor children. Someone said, all right, here we go. I'm looking at these comments too. When someone's asking, when is Diddler's third bail hearing? So it's going to be a while. He's appealed currently to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. They take a little bit longer to get to him. So it's not like the other one where it was the next day, but I'll certainly keep up with that. So again, last I was saying the recurring theme, people partying with Diddy, being told to take a drink. Some instances, they were told, if you don't take a drink, you got to leave the party. Baby, let me tell you who's about to be wrapped up in this. Ciroc, Diageo, which is supposed to be the parent company of Ciroc. Oh, they in there. They gone. Bye-bye. Don't be surprised if they end up having to file bankruptcy. Don't be surprised. That also I'm curious if getting wind of these kinds of claims may have been a portion of why they had the lawsuits and were stringing those out with Diddy. Remember, Diddy also dismissed a set of his lawsuits against some of these entities right after the Cassie situation. Now, we don't know whether that was a dismissal where he received payment, or was it a dismissal that said, go on out of here, boy. Go on out of here, boy, before we get you dragged through the law, as in through the cops and the police, etc. So hold on. So yeah, do not be surprised if you see these liquor brands being brought into at least these civil lawsuits right along with Diddy, because he's forcing people to take these drinks. And I bet you anything, we're going to read those complaints and they're going to say, I had to drink from a Ciroc bottle. I had to drink from a this or that bottle. I personally seen a video clip where his son, Christian, is trying to get this girl to take a drink. And she's like, no, I don't want that. And he's specifically saying, no, you got to drink from this bottle, not this bottle. Why would you say that? If it's the same thing, if it's all Ciroc, you got to drink from this one, not maybe this is the one that's laced and the other is not. In other words, Christian is drinking from an unlaced Ciroc bottle, but he's giving all the girls the laced one. This is why Christian was named in one of the civil suits. And it won't be letting up if this is continued. So here's some more of the facts. Again, this is not a class action. Also, he's not yet naming names, Tony Busby, but he will. He will be naming names shortly. What he's doing now, and I really appreciate this, he said they are focused on fact checking. So he said they have not filed these lawsuits yet. They anticipate doing so in the next 30 days after they have fact checked these lawsuits and confirmed that these people are not telling tales. Angela, great point. Angela said, Simone, remember Don's lawsuit states that there were off-duty armed police officers at these events. Again, yes, if it comes out that these people, again, 55 of these victims filed either police reports or went to the hospital to do, get the analysis when you believe you were assaulted. Well, when those happen, hospitals are mandatory reporters. So if someone says this person attacked me, they are required to notify the police so that they can do an investigation too. Here we go. All right. So the next, somebody said, I heard CPS was supplying him with underage children. I think that's a bit a bit of a stress of a leap. I don't know about that one. But okay, ketamine. Could ketamine have been in the drinks? It could have been, but Tony Busby specifically said one of the drugs that was found in these victims, plural. So this is significant because multiple victims went to the hospital and got tested. There happens to be part of the substantiation of these claims is that multiple victims had the same crazy but drug in their system after these nights with Diddy. And this is not a drug you would take on your own. It's xylazine. It is a horse tranquilizer. Nobody is out here just buying horse tranquilizers and shooting themselves up for a happy Sunday. So that to me was very telling evidence. In addition, he stated they're also going to sue anyone that was an accomplice, anyone that witnessed, anyone. Some of these instances were like these women woke up and Diddy was doing things to them, and then so were other men. All of them are going to be sued. So for those who watched it, those who participated, they said they want everyone. In addition, one of the examples, there was a woman who was given a drink that was laced. And then that person they passed out and they woke up later. That person was then given threats that if they complained, they said anything about it, they were going to be hurt. The overall claims that are intended to be brought by the Busby firm is abuse, false imprisonment. Let's see. Oh, it's using devices to record people without their permission, false imprisonment, different forms of assault, abuse of minors as well. And the youngest victim, I'm going to say this part and then I'm going to play the clip for you guys. The youngest victim was a 9-year-old boy. This boy was allegedly abused by Diddy and others when the boy and his parents brought him to Diddy in an attempt to get the boy a record deal. Another one was a child who was told that, Diddy was going to make him a star, and he came there with his family. And Diddy said, hey, I need to talk to your son privately, and went and talked to his son privately. And Diddy forced this male minor to give him fellatio. If you've ever watched, I've said this with friends, if you've ever read the book, The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Souljah, there is a scene in that book where basically there's this big drug lawyer, and in the book, that man would do that to other men in order to show his dominance, to say, like, this is how much control I have over you. I can make you do this. And once I've made you do this, I now own you, because I can dangle this over your head and embarrass you any given day if I were to tell anyone. And remember, most of these things were recorded. So now he can not only say, I made you do this gay thing, but now I made you do this gay thing and it's on camera. So if you ever go the wrong way with me, if you ever smart off at me, etc., I will ensure that you never have a career. Including Mr. Busby talked about the fact that there are some victims who said after Diddy did those things to him, they said, I don't even want to be in the industry anymore. So I'm going to share with you this clip. We're going to play this clip real quickly with Mr. Busby. And I'm going to be playing it in 1.25. So if you're already watching me in fast speed, it may sound crazy. It may sound super fast because of that. So here we go. This is Tony Busby describing some of the victim stories.
Otherwise, let me share with you a few, just kind of give you a sense of the kind of cases and the kind of instances that people are calling and reporting that we are trying to corroborate, vet, and these are the ones that we've already corroborated, vetted, and collected evidence on. One individual who was 22 years at the time she was assaulted said that the typical MO at one of these parties that have been widely discussed in the press was that when you were handed a drink, and now we know that the drink is laced with something, if you refused to drink it, you were kicked out of the party. Now let that sink in for a minute. I mean, the admission to this party was that you had to drink the chosen drink that was handed to you. And now we know that in most cases, I would say 90% of the cases, these individuals were drugged with some sort of drug. That was kind of the MO. Another instance, this individual who was 9 years old at the time was taken to a audition in New York City with Bad Boy Records. Other boys were there to audition as well. All of them were trying to land a record deal. All of them were minors. This individual was sexually abused, allegedly by Sean Combs and several other people at the studio in the promise to both his parents and to him himself of getting a record deal. Another instance, another minor, told allegedly by Sean Combs that he would make him a star, but he needed to visit with him in private about it, away from his parents. Once they were in a private area, allegedly Mr. Combs made the victim perform oral sex upon him. Another incident, an individual 50 years old at the time, flown to New York City to attend a party, was drugged, and then taken into a private room, allegedly in the presence of Mr. Combs, where this female individual minor was raped, and then other individuals took turns raping her. Another individual, 26 at the time of the occurrence, was picked up allegedly by Mr. Combs and several other people in a black SUV from the airport, was given one drink in the SUV, and then literally woke up the next day not knowing what had happened, but with pain and damage to both her vagina and her anus, where she then went to the hospital. She was missing her underwear and her shoes. Another instance, an individual, this time not a minor, attended a group dinner, allegedly with Sean Combs in Miami. She wasn't drinking because she was pregnant, but whatever she drank at the table, apparently, at least according to her, was laced with something. She blacked out, and she woke up in the same bed, again, allegedly, with Mr. Combs in his mansion in Miami. Her vagina and her anus were torn and sore. And I could go on. I mean, literally, you're sensing a theme here. It's the same theme, and it all involves some sort of drug. One instance, an individual who was 20 years old at the time was asked to attend, just saw her on the street, asked to attend a party in a hotel. She was flattered, went to the party, was given one drink and doesn't remember anything else. Ultimately, was so messed up, went to the hospital where they found cocaine and this horse tranquilizer in her blood system. I want to give you a quote from a very young man who told us over the phone about his experience.
Hold on, before we get to that quote, I just want to talk about the fact that part of the reason he's not going to get away with it this time is the horse tranquilizer. To me, if you've got two separate victims that don't know each other, but both went to a Diddy party and woke up with horse, that's all I needed to know. That's, if I were the feds, if I were any criminal institution, 2, good enough for me. 3, 4, 5, all y'all, come on, we going. He's going down. He's going down to the ground, because that's literally not something that you can get access to. But also the way Mr. Busby says he's not just going to take down Diddy, he's going to sue any co-conspirators. Somebody went and got that horse tranquilizer. Somebody ordered that. Was it KK? His assistant? Was it someone else? But Diddy himself, was not out here ordering. It was someone's idea. It very well could have been Diddy's idea. He could have just said, make these girls go to sleep, whatever it is. But we're going to hear the rest of this comment. Hold on.
And all the things that happened to him, he says, allegedly at the hands of Sean Diddy Combs and his friends in the effort to try to sign a record deal. This was kind of what he was told he would have to do. His quote is, "Had he not been in power, I feel like I could have been something great. I quit the industry because of what Sean Combs did to me." And that's really what it comes down to. We are pursuing this, asking you to support this effort, to encourage witnesses and victims to come forward and bring your evidence so we can continue to break down this wall of silence, and we can continue to have these stories heard. This is the beginning of what I hope to be a national dialogue.
All right, so you heard it there. Though that was like one of the most poignant parts that I thought, okay, I want to make sure, let me say, that I want to make sure you guys got to hear straight out of the attorney's mouth, because there are some people saying like, oh, there was no 9-year-old. Oh, there was no one that young. We heard him together. We heard this man together. So again, put in the chat if there are any myths that you want to address. Let me know. Diddy is gone. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, the prison will not be very fond of him. The prison, this is not going to be a very comfortable experience for him. They're going to need to keep him as isolated as possible. Now, the 9-year-old incident, that was particularly shocking to me. But hearing him say to the other, some other young man, you want to be in the industry, this is what you have to do, that doesn't surprise me. We've been hearing those rumors for years. And someone's asking about the statute of limitations. Generally, okay, here's what's important. Okay, now, the statute of limitations for SA against minors, in many states, there is none. I'll have to double check for California and New York, but I believe there's not one. Here's why. That law was changed a long time ago in response to allow people who are grown-ups but were abused when they were children to file lawsuits due to the Catholic Church priest debacle. So that's why states came in, made legislation to enable people who were then victimized to go in and get paid. And interestingly, those were all insurance policies that paid out on behalf of the Catholic Church. So gross. So gross. Some people said the parents of that minor child were wrong. Here's the thing. Who's to say the parents knew? A lot of people who are victimized, they hold that with them. Some children hold it with them till they're adults. And then it becomes very difficult. Like, all right, Diddy did this to you 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. How are we going to handle this as a family? Are we going to go to the police now? And then we're going to have to deal with, number one, if this child is still in the industry, maybe they're going to get blackballed in their, in the industry. Or secondly, who is going to believe us? Because the first question that's generally asked is, why did you take so long? Well, because I was terrorized and I was in trauma, and I probably didn't want to believe that this actually really happened to me. Not to mention that victims blame themselves, saying, oh man, I should have done this. If I would have done this, this wouldn't happen to me. So it can take a long time, especially for children. Think about it. You have children that are abused by their own relatives who never tell. When it's an international celebrity who their parents are banking. I've seen this. I was a child actress, right? I have seen where that child's talent is expected to take care of the entire family. You've seen it. The whole Little Magic. Oh, look, my baby, Little Magic. Little Magic's going to hit it big, and mama's going to be able to quit her job. I'm going to be able to get me a mansion. I'm going to be able to do all these things. You put that pressure on a kid, and then you're asking that kid, why aren't you telling me that this person who's supposed to change our life hasn't? Why? And you're telling me that this person who's supposed to change our life is a bad guy? No, those are the same parents where I'm saying it puts pressure on the child, but also it creates a dilemma in that if that child, especially if you don't find out about it when it first happens, it can be extremely different. Don't forget, this attorney has stated that 55 of the 120 people he's representing at this point either did file police reports that went nowhere or went to hospitals and filed reports at the hospital. Someone said they were victimized as a child and did not tell until they were 21 years old when they got married. That's why a lot of these people likely didn't do, or the parents didn't do anything. Or some people didn't even get a chance to file a police report. Think about it. If people aren't believing victims that immediately went and told on Danny, you think they're going to believe somebody who waited till they were an adult? All right. Someone said, Simone, any thoughts on the newly added Anthony Rico attorney that just joined the legal team? Now, first of all, if you've been watching that channel, didn't I just tell y'all? I told y'all earlier last week, I said, he's shaking up that team. He about sick of this little kangaroo court, wrinkled up lawyer that he had before. I don't know anything about Anthony Rico, but I will be doing my due diligence. I expect he's going to add a black person or two as well. Hit that like, guys. Hit that like button. Hit that like and the subscribe. Silver Blue said that's the worst. Yes, I agree. It's the worst to make fun of It's the worst to make the kids the breadwinner. Oh yeah, it used to happen all the time. I lived in an apartment complex in the summers. It was called pilot season back then. That's when they would record pilots for new TV shows. And I used to play with Tatiana Ali from Ashley from Fresh Prince. I used to play with her little sister. We were the same age, and we all lived in this apartment complex together. It was furnished temporary housing in LA. And those were my girls and all the stuff. And we played together, and her entire family. Now they were successful people, but they relocated for her to shoot the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And it was mom, dad, Tatiana, and her sister. I'm not saying that they were making her the breadwinner, but I am saying they were all there to support her do that. Her parents were educated. They were, I believe, school principals and things like that. So I'm not saying that they were making her the breadwinner, but I am saying I've seen entire families uproot themselves to help their child pursue their dream. Do I think it's going to affect his kids' futures and careers? Well, right now, his kids can't go anywhere without being looked at crazy. You know, people are saying crazy things to them. I wouldn't be surprised if their daughters choose to take a year off before going off to college for the twins. I think the one is Chance is already in college. Yeah. And if I were for Chance that's already in school, oh baby, if she wants to, you call up to the office that represents students with disabilities. You get you a letter from a mental health professional that says this child needs a medical withdrawal because emotionally and mentally and all of this going on with her daddy is too much. Absolutely. She qualifies for it. She can get it. She won't owe any more tuition for that semester, and she'll get to retake all of them classes, generally for free. All right. Someone else is saying they were hurt, abused. They didn't tell their mom until they were 50 years old that she was scared. I'm not going to put your name on here, hun, but I appreciate you sharing. She said she didn't tell her mom until she was 50 years old and was scared that she was being blamed. So for those of you guys that are new joining the chat, here's the highlights. There's over 3,000 different victims that called Tony Busby's office. Of those, so far they have pre-screened and accepted 120. Half of them are men, half are women. The youngest victim is a 9-year-old boy who was promised a record deal and then assaulted, allegedly by Diddy and others. Then there were multiple examples of women who were handed drinks. One woman was at a dinner in Miami. She was not drinking because she was pregnant. At some point, she drank something that she believed was non-alcoholic, only to wake up the next day in Diddy's Miami mansion in his bed, and then went to the hospital, got checked out. There was cocaine. There was coke in her system and horse tranquilizer. That's how crazy this has gone. At this point, these are all civil cases and they're not class action. They're individualized cases. Because a lot of people are asked about that. It says, Simone, can New York decide to extend or give an extension on the Adult Survivors Act, although it ended November 2023? So their legislature absolutely can. They can go on back and say, you know what? We want to open this for more victims. That is an excellent question. Foods and Start with the letter Q. Thank you so much for being such an active subscriber and contributor to the chat. They can, and I wouldn't be surprised whether or not they do. Because remember, the last time it was done, it's my understanding that it was done due to Harvey Weinstein, and those sets of victims. Lovely Beauty has said regarding Diddy, anyone joining Diddy's case honestly doesn't believe they have a client worth saving here. Let me tell you, my peers that are on the defense bar that do criminal defense on the federal level, they believe some of these charges are really bogus. Many of them do not believe in this RICO charge. They think the RICO charge is ridiculous. They think the prostitution, the trafficking could be explained away from everyone knew white parties, Diddy parties were freaky orgies. And this is simply an orgy, Your Honor, a consensual orgy. But here's the thing. I firmly believe that when the feds took those 500 plus boxes from Diddy's house, those boxes contain videotape footage that supports the government's claims that this was not, in fact, consensual. because that is a argument that the feds would have anticipated before they even got the indictment. You have to remember, there were 300 people subpoenaed to go before the grand jury. And whatever the grand jury received, they believed was strong enough to say, yep, this man probably did something. He probably did at least these 3 things that we've indicted him on. Someone says, Eve says, the majority of the minors were in state custody via CPS. Allie Carter's for years spoke to the child party favor table for the guests to select. She recants being ushered through the tunnel system in California. I need to look into Allie Carter's claims. I have some concerns about them. So I'm sharing your commentary because I do appreciate Eve. You are a great contributor on this channel. And I want to remind myself to make sure I look into that. So much pressure to feed adults when it should be the other way around on kids. Oh, thank you so much to Atasha. It says, thank you, Attorney Redwine, for explaining everything to us. Also, guys, hit that like button so we can support the channel. Yes, thank you. Didn't they say Diddy hired police as security? Yes, he did. Of course, his victims would think reports. Ooh, that's a good one. Given that Diddy hired police officers to serve at his parties. Oh, because let me tell you what's not going to happen. Thank you, Glam God, because what's not going to happen is if you're an off-duty police officer paid to be at Diddy's parties, what are you paid to do? Ensure no crimes are committed. So if this police report says this happened on such and such a day at such and such location, and it being the party that they homeboy Tim was supposed to be guarding, now what you think happens? That report comes in and somebody walks over to Tim or calls Tim on his beat and say, Tim, when you at that Diddy party? Yeah, man, I was at the Diddy party. Man, this girl said such and such happened. Oh, for real? I didn't see nothing like that. No. Oh, you mean that one girl that got told off, that went to the hospital? Oh, she was really drunk. She was just a loose woman. She was just this and that. Because see, police officers, first and foremost, are mandatory reporters. But at the same time, police officers are human. They want to go to a Diddy party. Look, if your choice is I got to guard the Knights of Columbus party at Holy Cross Catholic Church or the Diddy White party, what do you think they want to be at? Not the Knights of Columbus Christmas party at my church. Okay. Excellent point. Let me see. Wow, Simone, we adore. Oh, thank you, Story. Y'all, this is just really crazy. I'm reading these comments. Oh my gosh. I hope they collected DNA from the pregnant woman. Great question. You know what? When they do those kits, they do a swab. So that swab can pick up anything. And I wouldn't be surprised if that swab would show DNA of multiple people. Yeah, this is all like it says. Kimberly says, if he makes it to prison, can he be placed separate from population due to the children? Yeah, there's actually a wing for the pedos. There's a wing for those kinds of people. And those people they go to their own little section. It says, Simone, oh, Anthony Rico is black. Wow. You're it's because I said Diddy's going to be adding some black people to his team. Okay. He got Anthony Rico is black. I told you. Well, listen, I know this. Now that you guys have been supporting me like it, when I tell you people be dropping dimes, I get calls from other lawyers who are on certain cases, okay, who will talk to me about it as a colleague. Okay. I be knowing. And again, there's so much interesting information. There's so many conspiracy theories. You're not going to hear a conspiracy theory over here, but you will hear something that I found, anything crazy that I found that has been supported with receipts and or common sense. The hierarchy took control of blocking companies. This is super chat. Okay. Thank you. Love my hair. Thank you. I bought it on Amazon. I'll put a link up to it. I really like it. I've had it since July. Just shake it off and go. Is Diddy going to get off? Absolutely not. So there are 3 main charges, guys. There's the interstate hookers, taking hookers across state lines. There's the RICO, and then there's the other form of trafficking or assault charge. The RICO also contains like a conspiracy element. And what I anticipate is if he gets off on anything, it might be one of the 3. But then you know what happens when that happens, guys? when you get off on one of the three, but the evidence overall is so disgusting and heinous and damning, then the judge can do one of two things. Let's say he gets off on one, but, just gets the interstate prostitution, hooker situation and the other charge, which are less. The minimum he's facing is 15 years, but the judge can choose to take the lesser things he was charged with and stack them on top of each other. I've seen that. So the judge will just say, you know what? You were found not guilty of this one thing, but I really think you should have gotten something for it. Or the facts of what you were found guilty for were so gosh darn heinous that I'm going to make sure that you sit there for a good long time and think about it. So I anticipate he's going to get a long sentence or a stacked sentence to make it longer. But he might get away with one, but he ain't getting away with all three. I know that. And because some of the victims that Mr. Busby is referring to have done police reports or reached out, but Mr. Busby is unsure of the status of whether the feds are using any of these victims. What happens is when they prepare their investigation, they send copies of everything to the feds, which will then make their job a lot easier. And I would not be surprised if that either results in additional charges or additional witnesses. Yep, cops are paid to look the other way. You ain't never lying. Thoughts on his daughters being abused? No, here we go. Let me see if I can put that on the screen. I don't think at this point that his daughters were, because the even Cassie's own complaint was very clear that he tried to shield his abusive ways from his kids, including there was one time when he whooped up on her real bad and told her, you need to stay in this room. You cannot come out. I got my kids here and they can't see you all beat up like this, even though he did it. So that says to me, he wants the kids to hold him in pristine eyes and pristine view. And that is also consistent with narcissists. Narcissists want you to think that they are perfect, that they are without flaws, etc., etc. Yeah, they are not running off suspicions. No, this indictment. Oh, thank you so much, Eve, legal bestie. Just because for all you continue to do, I am pissed they passed the torch before. I'm pissed they passed the torch before the Diddy take down. Oh, also, guys, I've got my Cash App below if you want to hit that up. It's missredwine.com. So just to recap, today in Tony Busby's lawsuit, if you're joining now, feel free to rewind it on back to the beginning. I played a clip, and I can go back to it. Let me go back to this part of the clip where he identifies what happened to the 9-year-old, because this really just shook me. Hold on. I'm going to go back to it. Here we are. I want you to hear it one more time. Oh, here we are.
Individuals were drugged with some sort of drug. That was kind of the MO. Another instance, this individual who was 9 years old at the time was taken to a audition in New York City with Bad Boy Records. Other boys were there to audition as well. All of them were trying to land a record deal. All of them were minors. This individual was sexually abused, allegedly by Sean Combs and several other people at the studio in the promise to both his parents and to him himself of getting a record deal. Another instance, another minor, told allegedly by Sean Combs that he would make him a star, but he needed to visit with him in private about it, away from his parents. Once they were in a private area, allegedly Mr. Combs made the victim perform oral sex upon him. Another incident, an individual 15 years old at the time, flown to New York City to attend a party, was drugged and then taken into a private room, allegedly in the presence of Mr. Combs, where this female individual minor was.
Okay, I don't want to use the R word again on here, but you get the gist there. All right. So, and I want to say thank you so much, Food That Starts with Q, for the super sticker. I truly appreciate that. There was a comment here. I think I flagged it. I want you to see. So overall, Tony Busby's office had over 3,000 people that called seeking representation for being victimized by Diddy. Of those 3,000, they have pre-screened and so far accepted 120. Of those 120, 25 of those victims were minors. Half of all the victims of the 120 were men, half were women, 62% Black. The youngest victim being 9 years old, another being 14, another being 15, and on up. These incidents began in approximately 1991, but the majority actually happened from 2015 on to the present. And the resounding theme of all of these incidents was that people attended a Diddy party, the white party, a party at his house, whichever. Women were and men were handed a drink, drank the drink, passed out, and woke up, then realizing that their bum and or their vajiggle jaggle was sore. Also, 55 of these victims filed either police reports or went to the hospital and had medical reports done. And multiple of the victims, when those reports done and they were tested for drugs or whatever was in their system, were found to have horse tranquilizer in their system. Multiple. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is, let me see. Here we got. Oh, thank you again for the super sticker. This was a great point. Kenya Waits says, Puff went to Catholic school up in Mount Vernon. It definitely was during the time of the rampant abuse going on, not to mention his mother being a madam of sorts, allegedly. Oh, absolutely. One thing I know is that when your mom is a whore, it's a lot more likely that you're going to get exposed to abuse. Because I had a home girl, her mom was a hoe too, and I wasn't allowed to spend the night at her house, and I didn't understand. But it was because my mom said it was because her mom had 5 kids by 5 men, and the men would come around. Plus, she had brothers. And I was like, no, there's too many men coming in and out that lady's house. And sure enough, my friend, her daughter, was abused. So I just say that to say it would totally be consistent that Diddy was abused. Like, because the other thing that you find, and this is absolutely the case, you'll see anyone in CPS, social workers will say, abused children generally abuse others. When you're abused, you abuse someone else. Not all the time, but particularly where you see children abusing other children, that's because someone did it to that child. They don't just know to do those things, right? It's someone else did it to them. And then also sometimes when you have been victimized, you then choose to do that to others later in life. So, I mean, God forbid, no one wants that to be wished on anyone. Are they going to be testifying? Oh, yes. So here's the thing. Oh, I'm so glad you asked. I'm so glad you asked. In civil court, you must testify. There is no way, the only way around not testifying, these are all civil lawsuits, to be clear. None of what we're talking about today none of these have become criminal at this point. So it's 124 potential new criminal charges against Diddy. Because at this point, Tony Busby and his firm haven't even sent over everything to the feds. The reason why is they said they are pre-screening all these cases before they file them themselves, and each case has to be filed individually because it's not a class action. It says, I bet the diddler is going to have control. So are they going to be testifying in civil courts? If you are a plaintiff, you must testify. I had a case. It was a multi-million dollar. It was like a $1 million case, and my client had a cruise scheduled. And I was like, hey, if you don't show up, our case will be dismissed because we're the plaintiff. And the defendant was in prison. So the defendant wasn't coming, or they were choosing not to bring him from but this was a corporate case against an 18-wheeler company. Anyway, so I say that to say, we will hear from each and every victim that goes to trial. But remember, here's the key. You got to remember this point. This is going to go on for years due to the fact that now that Diddy has a criminal case, whenever a civil case is filed, his law firm, his criminal attorneys will be able to, or civil, whoever, will be able to file a document that's called requesting a motion to stay, meaning a motion for this civil case to not move forward until after his criminal case is handled first. Now, when that is the case, oh, shoot. Oh, my God. For the victims, it's just dawned on me, guys. Oh, Okay, when that happens, two things happen. One, the all civil victims that have not already been paid got to wait till the criminal case is done to get paid. Now, here, this criminal case is going to take place within a year and might even be 6 months. He's going to be filing a motion for speedy trial, which basically means in federal court, they got to start picking a jury in 6 months. But here's the thing. If he chooses to file bankruptcy, and I anticipate he's going to start selling off a bunch of assets and then take that cash and buy a Florida multi mansion, because in Florida, they have homestead protection with no limit. He could buy a $200 million home, shelter all his assets in that $200 million home, and there's nothing that can be done. And here's the kicker with bankruptcy. If he then goes and files bankruptcy, he still gets to keep the $200 million Florida home. Not in any other state, Texas perhaps, but he will be able to keep any $200 million Florida home. And when you file for bankruptcy, but there's a civil case that has not yet been resolved, here's what's screwed up. What it does is the bankruptcy court, if they approve the bankruptcy, it means that unless there is an insurance policy that can pay out those victims for any of the offenses listed, the victims don't get paid. I'm going to say that again, because I had personally, one of my multi-million-dollar settlement cases was against a bankrupt company, and my own co-counsel dropped the case. It was like, hey, I can't be your co-counsel. They're bankrupt now. There's no money to get paid. I didn't tell that co-counsel, are you stupid? That's not the law. I didn't tell him like, oh no, we'll get paid, because there was an insurance policy in play that was active prior to the bankruptcy. I just went ahead and I collect my millions. I got my millions for the client. So the issue here is going to be, he can file these 120. But if Diddy files for bankruptcy while these cases are pending, and remember, they're going to have to remain pending until his criminal case is resolved. If he files bankruptcy, none of those people get paid unless there's going to be an insurance policy that can be triggered to pay them. Or if it's someone other than Diddy that would be paying. So for example, if they also sue Ciroc, or they also sue like a location, Diddy's house, or something else where these incidents took place at, then those people can get paid. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is some legal tea that you're only going to get here, but from your legal bestie, Attorney Simone, on Girl, Is That Legal? Someone said, oh, Jermaine said, ain't nothing in his mom's name. No, some people argue that he's got properties in his mom's name, his kid's name. It doesn't matter. Those are fraudulent transfers. We all know those are fraudulent transfers. And any victim and a victim's attorney, the Busby Law Firm, is going to file what needs to be filed to get access to those. I think he's going to sell as much as he can and then use it. So if you see Diddy, if we see on that news, Diddy's buying a new house in Florida, we already know what time it is. And you just let him know your legal bestie told you first. If you see him buy another Florida property, yes. Callie Nolia said, didn't he just pay off his $50 million house in Florida? This is why. To protect the asset. For two reasons. One, by him owning that house free and clear, he was able to put it up for bond. Right? He was able to put it up for bond to protect the house by owning it free and clear. And say, Your Honor, I've got $50 million worth. That's what and by him doing that, that's what he's banking the appeal on. Now he's going for his third appeal for bond. And he's hoping that the court say, wait, he's got $50 million to put up. He's not a flight risk. But the court is going to say it's not about flight risk. You be out here tampering with witnesses. And that's why we got to keep your butt locked up over here where we can see you. Okay. But he also paid off that $50 million house in Florida so that he could protect his homestead and his asset. Nobody can touch that 50 million. And notice he's selling the 70 million. Because see, this is what it was. If you're really just trying to keep your home, you would sell the $50 million home, keep the 70 million in Cali. But it ain't about that. It's about obtaining that homestead exemption to protect his assets. Because California don't give you that protection. California said, you hurt people in California, pay up. We selling your house. We selling your cars. We selling everything that you have to get right to these victims. Florida is over here like, you can commit crimes, come on over. So in other words, yeah, so he's selling the $70 million home in California, and he's going to take that cash more than likely and combine it with what he's got in Florida and possibly get an even larger house, or use that in other ways to pay down his debts. He might create a trust for the girls, but he's going to move that money to try and protect it as much as possible away from the victims. Now, I anticipate he would also create some type of a trust fund, a larger expanded trust fund for each of the kids, under the argument that, like, hey, I did this, I did this to provide for my kids' future. We'll see what the courts say, but I anticipate Attorney Busby, when he files these lawsuits, will be requesting some form of what's called an injunction to prevent him from moving money around, selling things, or doing things that would prevent victims from being paid. Judges can make a judgment against transferring assets. Yeah, that would be called an injunction, but it's really, really, really hard to get. It's super hard to get, but it's called an injunction. It's hard to get because you have to show a probability of success of winning your overall lawsuit due to the fact, and then they want you to be very specific with what assets can't be transferred. And that's because they don't like encumbering assets before someone has been found liable in a civil case. What about money and properties being his mom's name? Yep. He's going to try to do that. He's going to put stuff in Quincy's name, Christian name, the 17-year-old girl's name, but it's not going to matter because they're going to be able to trace it back to if he starts doing this stuff, after these victims have come out, those victims' lawyers are going to be like, oh, no. In the same way that in the Tasha K case, the judge and Cardi B's attorneys are tracing assets and saying, hey, she moved money here and there, and this is unpermissible. That's the same kind of thing. Argument. We'll see whether, it works, but that's the same kind of argument that the victims here will make. Shabley says she doesn't feel Allie Carter is that reliable. She also claimed Tupac was her dad and is still alive. Okay. All right. I think that's more consistent with the stuff that I've seen on her. So yeah, I'm going to do a little bit more due diligence. Davila said, I was saying everyone is hoping for a Cassie payout. If they are awarded, it won't even be close. Here's the thing. The only person with an inkling of a chance of getting something like a Cassie payout would be Dawn. And the reason is because of all of these, Dawn is the only one who is an employee. And therefore, Cassie, remember, got paid out by the employment law insurance that was triggered by the way that her attorneys wrote the complaint. Dawn's lawyers, same thing. Dawn's problem is going to be the statute of limitations likely passed on Dawn, because Dawn should have filed her lawsuit during the same window that Cassie had. I hope that makes sense. And there's some bloggers out there that are not lawyers, that never went to law school, and said, oh, there's no insurance that pays for deliberate acts. Listen, stupid. Here's how that works. Let me give you the analogy. And they're like, oh, they don't pay for crimes. They don't pay for deliberate acts. Here's the analogy. You are driving down the street, minding your business. You get hit by a car. You get rear-ended by the car. You're getting out. You're looking at the rear end damage. And then as you're out there, the other driver gets mad at you and sucks you in your face deliberately. Do you think that means they're not going to cover the damage to your car? Hell yeah, they will. So there are things considered covered and uncovered under a claim. And what happens is they only pay for the covered stuff. But what happens in a settlement is, you ask for the whole policy. And because a jury is going to hear all the facts, a jury's not going to be thinking in their head, well, what's covered under the claim and what's not? Insurance companies know this. So when you punch somebody in the face like that and the insurance company knows it, they say, oh, hell, we just going to settle. Because once a jury hears all the bad things that you do, they're going to give high punitive damages, or they're going to give high amounts generally. And so that's how that happens, just to clarify, guys. Don was kidnapped. Hasten on. Sabrina said, never argue with an attorney on law. Please don't. You can say, I love when people say, I don't think that's true. No problem. I can say, listen, stupid. Yes. Let me see. We got YouTube Streets. I think she's a host. Oh, talking about Quincy. Why would he put something in Quincy's name when that's not his biological son? All right. Great question. It doesn't matter. You can put anything in anyone's name. them being related to you wouldn't matter. The fact that he cared for him and calls him his son would be justification to say, hey, I am creating a trust for all of the people that I consider my kids. I don't know how long I'm going to be away or incarcerated. This is why I'm doing it. That might be why. But whether or not he is his son or not doesn't have any impact for anything other than what happens after Diddy passes away if he were to leave without a will. And there's no way in hell he would leave without a will. Somebody said the guest list. Is this the jail guest list? Leo, Beyonce, Jay-Z, and other biggies. They ain't going to see him in jail. The victims won't seek medical. That alone seals a mute argument. Okay, let's see. Okay, Naomi says he legally adopted him. Okay, got it. Yeah, it doesn't make a difference one way or the other for the purpose of evaluating whether or not he can hide and transfer assets to prevent them from going to his victims. Yep, you can even put assets in your pet's name. But you doing that, like at this point, it's obvious. Will the victims get paid if he passes before trial? Great question. So here's what happens. When someone passes away, you simply substitute in their estate for them. And you got to make sure you have a good lawyer, because some lawyers don't know. They're like, oh, I don't know what to do. Hey, when they're gone, hey, easier for me, because you can't get up there and say I'm innocent. Sorry for you. Will it help Dawn's case that she was employed for the law? What helps her case is that she was employed, period. Because again, that triggers employment law insurance that could come and cover it up. What she's going to be dealing with, though, is they're going to be filing a motion to dismiss in her case. This is my opinion. It has not yet happened. Mark my words, and we'll circle back. In Dawn's case, they're going to file a motion to dismiss her case based on the statute of limitations. Then if they win that motion, as in, okay, if Diddy wins, that means the case is gone. That case is dismissed. It's going to get appealed by Lisa Bloom and her legal team, who are the lawyers. But if Dawn's team wins that argument, it's highly likely that the insurance adjuster will say, put some money on the table. We don't want to go to court on this. They're going to put some money, whether it's going to be good enough for Lisa Bloom or not, but at least with insurance on the table, that would guarantee that there is a way for her to get paid, and she won't have to line up like these other victims, these other 120 likely will have to try and squeeze out some cash from Diddy himself. All right. What will happen to his music catalog and residuals? Same thing as R. Kelly. Those can be seized to pay the victims. That's what we did in that case. And so far, one of the victims has a $4 million order. His residuals so far, R. Kelly, have only paid her 2 of the 4 million. So y'all keep stepping in the name of love, bumping and grinding to his music so that victim can get her other 2 million. So that's an excuse someone can use when they're like, why are you dancing to R. Kelly? I'm trying to help the victims, guys. Same thing with Diddy. Why are you dancing Diddy? I'm trying to help the victims. You can wait on that Diddy dancing though. Because we don't know how much is going to go to the victims quite yet. So hit that like button, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, subscribe here, hit that notification button as well. It's your legal bestie, Attorney Simone, on Girl, Is That Legal on YouTube.